Welcome to A Better Conversation, a podcast put on by Better Dallas. I'm your host, as always, Chris Klement, joined today, as always, by the man, the myth, the legend, the mustache, the beard, and kind of Scuba Steve here soon, Mr. Kyle Mason.
Yes, we got a good conversation tonight about kind of national things going on up north, things still going on in Texas, and then, of course, it's the political primaries, and there's been a lot of back and forth, and now we're going to kind of get into the nitty-gritty on what these other people are saying they are and what they really are, and kind of trying to decipher some of these definitions that people are using.
All right, so let's start talking about kind of a big story right now, and it's a bigger conversation that we'll be breaking down in the future, but this sort of invasion by protesters of a church in Minnesota.
Yeah.
So if you haven't heard, recently there was a group of about 30 to 40 protesters that barged into a church service in Minneapolis, I think it was. Mm-hmm. And it's reported that the reason that they chose that particular church was because one of the pastors there was also a field director for ICE. ICE, somewhat controversial at the moment in Minneapolis.
In case you haven't heard.
But here's the thing is, like, this group was, again, and we've talked about this before, same old people, right? So you had Black Lives Matter and some sort of racial justice group that took credit for organizing all of this and putting all these people there to disrupt the church and do things like that.
Yep.
Fortunately, there wasn't violence. People weren't injured, but it was just a total disrespect for the service, total disrespect for the church, for these stupid political protests of the moment.
Yes.
Kyle, what was your sort of reaction when you first saw that news story?
My first reaction was that, now that it's happened publicly, is immediately we're going to see more of this. Like immediately and just the way that news is fed out to the world, that when you see this happen once, it's going to start happening again. And it's not surprising that Christians, again, in this country, they're just kind of like the whipping post of the left, and everything with Christianity to the left is offensive, and it's it's a hate crime, and it's an act of violence. And my next thought was, nothing is going to happen that to these people. Like, nothing bad is going to happen. There's not going to be any investigation. There's not going to be any charges. And I, of course, I open up X. Everyone is thinking the same thing. Mm-hmm. So I guess, and look, it happened over the weekend, and you had Martin Luther King Day, so everyone was off. So you really can't bring charges, I don't think, on a Monday when everyone's off. But
federal courts are
closed, but it's the end of Tuesday, and we really still don't have anything. Pam Bondi is still dropping Epstein files into the shredder or something. And so we'll once she gets done with that, we'll maybe move on to Don Lemon getting some kind of investigation into this.
Is this criminal? Should it be criminal? Should it be a federal crime?
That is that is a really great question, right? And that is, was Don Lemon there just, doing journalism as he said, or, was this, pre-planned? Was this a pre-planned thing? And some really good examples was if this was a group of right-wing nationalists, like neo-Nazis or something, and there was a journalist with them, and they had pre-planned to go to a black church and disrupt their service.
Right.
But the journalist was there just journaling, but he knew about the interruption, and he knew what they were going to do, and he was going to make, little kids were crying. Would the Justice Department under Biden or really anywhere else, or whatever state that happened, would they just be sitting on their hands and being like, well, it's just white Christians. I mean, it's fine. Hey, it's going to happen. It is what it is. And that's kind of the, I guess I hate to do it, but the whataboutism that we keep constantly reviewing. And I think that's where the outrage is right now on the right about this entire situation.
Yeah, this still stands to question, like, should that act be a federally enforced criminal act?
That's
Some
for
pro
lawyers to decide. I mean,
Well, not from a lawyer side. I'm just talking about, like, from just a sense of societal norms. Like, do we want that? Like, do we want? I hate that it happened. It's despicable. Should never happen. It's a desecration of a holy space. I don't know, as a conservative, if I want that to be a federal offense. Right? Like, again, this is just another thing about the federal government coming in and doing all of this stuff. Like, I don't want the federal government doing that. Now, maybe if, like, there's a state law, you want to go enforce state law, it's trespassing, there's things that it's crime. I mean, you're there, it's private property.
Yep.
If the church wants to say leave and these people aren't willing to leave, if they're causing a public disturbance, I mean, there's already that sort of criminal stuff on the books. I'll have law enforcement come and do that.
Yeah.
I don't know. This is like,
It's a tough question, like, on so many different levels, because it's like, yeah, I mean, it's okay. Yeah, is the state of Minnesota really going? I mean, we've already seen what the judges there do. You people get. I mean, they're releasing pedophiles and they're rapists and murderers and people that are found guilty of $1 million of fraud. They're getting their cases thrown out. The police aren't showing up really because they're overloaded or they don't want to get in the middle of this. I mean, it's like, okay. I do think at that point it would be the job of the federal government to step in if justice was not being served or there is not an investigation on whether or not these people's religious freedoms. I guess if it, like, the argument is, okay, they went in there one time, was their religious freedom being taken away? It's like if you were debating someone and they just kept talking over you for that one debate, was your freedom of speech being taken away? No, not really. But again, if you let this one go, people in general, but I think really the left is going to learn, oh, I can get away with this, and that is going to have a detrimental effect on society. Because look, and as people hate to say this, but like ICE has been very well behaved as far as like with constraints and how orderly everything has been considering the circumstances. But like, I just don't see that panning out if the left wants to start walking into churches all around the country. You're not going to really see that restraint, and the left is going to come out and say, oh, that's not very Christian of them. Like, one, we don't care what they have to say about what is Christian and what's not. As Don Lemon says, that's not the Christianity I practice. But again, he's a gay man, so it's like, again, yes, we do not practice the same Christianity, but there's going to be a big issue, and I think it's important for the fabric of society that something is done.
See, I think this is a tremendous opportunity for Christians.
Oh, it is.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's a matter of like, you can show people how you should act. So let's say that a bunch of yahoos like this walk into your church, start hollering, disrupt service, all that sort of stuff.
Good PR.
Like, first of all, let's just think about how you should react to it. How would you teach your kids to react to a situation like that? Right? You probably wouldn't teach your kids to like go throw hands, go fight them immediately, right? Now, if they start harming people, if they start destroying property, if they go and desecrate something holy, like if they go up on the pulpit and start like licking the crosses and things like that, yes, absolutely. You take physical action.
Sure. Yeah.
Because that goes a step far. But just them disrupting the service or disrupting the mass, it's bad. It's despicable. You shouldn't do it. But how much more of like a powerful message would it be if like the congregation stood in prayer or stood in song or did something like a peaceful resistance to what's happening and say, we're asking you to leave. If you're not going to leave, we'll get law enforcement here. Law enforcement can come here, trespass you, and take you away. Right? I mean, that's where for me it's like, I don't think if you have congregations that respond to it positively, it's something that the left would stop doing. Because it's just like, well, I mean, this is the whole thing about, the uniqueness of America. right? For all of human history, it's always been you need a king, you need a dictator, you need some sort of earthly authority to regulate every bit of your life because we can't trust you to regulate yourself. The great thing about America is one of the first times that we had a freedom to regulate ourselves. And the reason that America was able to do that and Americans were able to prosper despite giving all of these freedoms was because of our shared Judeo-Christian values. Where it's, these are the things that we're taught to do. I don't need an earthly authority to tell me I have to do this because I have a heavenly authority and I have eternal damnation. That means a lot more to me than, a couple of days in the county jail. And so that's how Americans would regulate themselves.
Yeah, that's how Americans would regulate themselves. I totally agree.
What a great opportunity for Christians to do that.
Yeah, I, like one or two times, I think that's great, but that's not the lefts that we know of today, and we've seen it happen in recent history too. I mean, again, the Christianity to the left, and I'm not talking about like Democrats, like you're just like everyday Democrats, the probably 60 million plus. I'm talking about the very fringe people that you see out on the streets, but those are kind of some of the most politically active people that are actually part of the Democratic Party. Is like, that's not how they think. And it's like, for them to put fear into people, especially like in Minnesota right now, if you are a churchgoer, right? And I know there's tons of biblical things to be like, yes, you still need to go to church even though you're scared. But like, if you were a churchgoer and you like, okay, is it safe for me right now or next Sunday to go to church? How is this going to, what is going to happen at the church? Am I safe? Is it secure? Walking to the parking lot, all these things. If law enforcement in the area does not respond, and really they didn't respond. Like, it took them a long time to clear the church out. It took, like, church was ended, right? It wasn't like they all got up and sang in prayer and everything like that. And it's like, I totally get your point. And I think that is like long-term the best. This was a huge mistake for the left. You had that they disturbed the church, and again, let's not forget, like, this is still a majority Christian nation. Even though people like don't go to church or like they don't write down their Christian, they still have sympathy for religious freedoms and and Christians in general. And it's like, the left went in there, they disturbed the service. These were peaceful people. There was kids crying. The left was unmasked, and there was tons of people walking around there, SSRI eyes, and like just absolutely crazy people, right? The crazy, like that's the people that the left are weaponizing. And so I just think, like, with the fringe, you have to make some kind of example and be like, hey, look, okay, here's your one. And, here's your trespassing ticket or whatever. You were asked to leave and you didn't leave in a timely manner. That's fine. But if nothing is done, we're going to see more of this. And that's my fear, is like, if it's not handled right now.
Well, that's why I agree. That's why I said that it's a matter for local law enforcement.
Yeah. The problem,
right?
But the local law enforcement not really doing anything because it's inside the city of Minnesota. They're not doing it. That's why I agree with you. Like, if it happened in Dallas or in one of the suburbs, like, local law enforcement, that is the best place. They would do something. But like, in this situation, local law enforcement's like, their hands are tied because the local voters don't support that, so they can't really do a lot that they should be doing. So that's why I see the federal government. That's why I see it's their spot to now show up and do some kind of enforcement. Again, I don't really know if there is a case to be made there.
I just don't want there to be a case to be made there.
Yeah. Well,
like, I don't want the federal government enforcing trespass laws in local municipalities. Like, the only time I want the federal government involved like that is when they're functioning the way they were last year under, when Trump would send, National Guard or something to support local law enforcement. It's still local law enforcement doing it. You still had local police departments, welcoming and inviting these people to do it. I'm all for that. But to have the federal government say, you know what, you're not prosecuting the law the way that I want you in your local jurisdiction, so I'm just going to do it. That's not that. If another administration was in power, we certainly would not want them to be doing that.
We certainly wouldn't want them to
Right,
do that, but they have done that, and they've, like, for instance, the people that did the sit-in or that were trying to counsel people on the sidewalk. What was the act that they got arrested for? And
FACE Act.
The FACE Act, and that's kind of like what the first thing everyone came out was like, get this person for the FACE Act, and really, it's like, again, I actually think this is worse than the people that were, standing outside of abortion clinics and like kind of like
Right.
let me do the counseling thing. But the left understood at that moment that, like, okay, if one, our constituents want this, right, and they're very reactive to their constituents, side point. But two, they're like, okay, if we don't stop this, if we don't make an example of these people, if we do not pull them out of their homes at gunpoint with SWAT teams, there's going to be more people showing up to abortion clinics, and more of our base is going to get mad. Now, does that make it right or wrong?
It makes it wrong.
It makes it wrong, but
Yeah.
at the same time, like, are we just going to constantly be like, again, if we want to lose, that's fine. Like, that's the problem. Like, we keep running into this thing, and we're going to get into it later too. But like, we are just like the team that constantly loses.
I don't think that's true. I think that's two wrongs don't make a right. And if you're talking about the long term of properly running a society and properly running a government, I think the long term I would much rather have Republicans try to spend their time like
Talking about tax law,
taking apart the FACE Act
yeah,
and saying this is no longer the law. We're eliminating this. This is not good law. Let's kick it to the curb.
yeah,
And saying, look, you know what's wrong? Because we just talked about it. You know what's wrong is to arrest people who are praying in front of an abortion clinic. What's wrong is to arrest people that are offering to counsel, that are offering people another opportunity.
100%.
Now, if those people start physically going and messing with people, this is why things like the FACE Act don't make any sense. You don't need that. It's a totally unnecessary law because it's already against the law to like physically like impede somebody's movement.
Yeah.
Like there's already battery laws for stuff like that. There's already assault laws for stuff like that.
Yeah.
You don't need the FACE Act. You only need the FACE Act if you want to create jurisdiction for federal agents to enforce something like that, which is what we don't want, right? Because the FACE Act was started so that the political left could arrest Christians for praying and trying to stop abortions.
Right. And I think the only way to get them on board of getting rid of that is to use it against them.
They're never going to be on board getting rid of it because it centralizes federal authority. The Republicans just need to do away with it. It's a bad law. We don't like it. Let's get rid of it. Instead of like, let's use it against them. Like, to me, that's just the race to the bottom.
Yeah, I mean, you could definitely say that.
I mean,
but it's not going anywhere anyway. Like, it's not going away. The FACE Act is not going. Well, because
we control the House and the Senate. Why shouldn't we be calling?
We don't do much of anything. We control all three branches of government. They're not going to be like, you know what? We need to get rid of the FACE Act.
I think this actually provides a really good focal point for why we need to get rid of it.
It definitely does, 100%. But again, that's not going to happen. The easier answer and the much more politically expedient is to make an example of some of these people. And again, maybe Don Lemon. I mean, again, they have arrested journalists that were at J6 and were literally just journaling. And Don Lemon was involved with this group, was recording and having interviews before. Hey, we're going to go march and then we're going to go into this church. And it's like, okay, cool. So you were conspiring to go into this church, interrupt their service. And like, I think that he needs to be held to account. Those people need to be held to account to some degree, just to be like, it is what it is. And then like, some philosophical debate that the Trump administration's having right now, which is probably, yes, it is probably the more correct thing to do. But again, that is not politics. It's not like politics isn't always like, what is the most correct thing to do?
Isn't that what we want it to be though?
Yes. Oh, dude. Yes, that's what we would want it to be, but that's not the reality of it. You know what I'm saying? Like, It's just like with war. It's like okay, this is a perfect example. Like how I am with intervention. It's like, yeah, but we should be able to talk. We should be able to do this. But then like war hawks would be like, yeah, but we live in the real world, and it's like, fair point.
Right, but
It
still would be wrong to skip over all those other steps. It's just like when you're talking about like war.
Yeah,
I think. Look, I am a pretty hawkish guy.
Yeah. We have good conversations about it.
But I certainly don't think that you should run to war first. That's sort of still a last. It's like with Trump and Iran. You give them a chance, you give them a chance, you give them a chance, you give them a chance. If they don't do it, then eventually this is what has to happen. Same thing with criminal trespassing people out of church, right?
Yeah. Again, it's like one time, yeah.
Right. Y'all need to leave. If they don't leave, then you arrest them. I think that's pretty sensible.
Yeah.
This goes back to this is the value debate about America, is you have all these, for example, one of the things that's unique about America that's different than the rest of the world is the idea of local control, the whole idea of federalism. This is why we care about, it's really hard for me to hear people that beat their chest about being, I'm a constitutional Republican. I love the Constitution. I'll tattoo it on my body. And then stuff like this comes up and it's just like, nah. Because no, we care about the Constitution. It's one of the amazing things about our society.
Yeah.
We love the idea that we have laboratories of democracy. And we have states that we have a constitution that specifically said, we're reserving all this for the states, right? State has the jurisdiction over all of this stuff. There's stuff that we're specifically saying that the federal government can only do these particularly enumerated things. Everything else is left to the states. And as a Republican, or at least it used to be the Republican way, as a conservative, I've always been like, yeah, I want to roll back to that, right? I want to get back past this FDR new era where the government can regulate just about anything that it wants to because it hypothetically could be part of interstate commerce. As opposed to actually having a real meaning of interstate commerce and doing things like, well, if somebody wants to grow their own onions, they can grow their own onions. And if they don't sell those onions to people in other states, you can kind of grow and sell your own onions. And not just be like, well, there's an onion market, and so hypothetically your little thing might affect, so we can tell you can't grow white onions. You only grow yellow onions.
Yep.
Or you're growing too many onions. I don't know. I want to get the federal government out of states and out of local communities. I don't want more of them there. Unless they have a specifically enumerated reason to be there, like ICE does, enforcing immigration law. I don't know.
Yeah. No, I mean, look, it's literally, look, it is as of right now, it is a one-time thing. But I mean, let's just play hypothetical here. Next weekend it happens in Minnesota. Let's just keep it in Minnesota. And local authorities still don't do anything. And then the next weekend, and then on Wednesday night mass, and then the next weekend, and it's like, well, it's up to local authority. It's like, again, this is hypothetical. I'm just kind of, it's like, at what point is it then, impeding people's religious freedom? At what point is it intimidation? I guess that's kind of, and I guess that was kind of the argument with the FACE Act is like, if people are showing up outside of abortion clinics every single day, it's like, are they impeding what legally in that state is, they're allowed to do? And that's kind of my question. But the reason I jump all the way to the end, and I know you as a lawyer, it's like, well, don't do that, right? But it's like, the reason I jump to the end is because I know the left and I see how they act and I see how they operate. It's like, if there is no punishment, they're going to continue to do it because it is effective, because it is scaring the people that they fear most.
So here's things that's great about our country. If the local government won't take criminal action, those churches have civil action they can take. because you can go after somebody civilly for trespass.
Yep.
You can go after somebody civilly for, interfering with the operation of your organization.
Yeah.
You can go after the organizers that do that and co-conspirators, intentional infliction of emotional distress. That's a tort claim that you have, that if you wanted to go after somebody that's coming in that's trying to scare and intimidate people in your church, or just plain trespassing. They were told that they needed to leave. They didn't leave. They trespassing in our church. So we are now suing them all. And we're also going to sue Black Lives Matter, and we're going to sue this other racial justice group. And you know what? Don Lemon is a co-conspirator. He gets sued too. Because if you have multiple people engaged in trying to get a tort thing happen, you can do that. The other thing, if you play that out, eventually you do snap the camel's back. You might have local government allow this to happen over and over and over and over again. But what happens if Christians in Minnesota are now motivated to now vote for a different party? Because, there's tons of Christians in Minnesota that are voting Democrat. Well, what happens if all of a sudden they now see that the Democrats that are running things are allowing these people to just run amok, and there's no protection for their faith? There's no protection for them as Christians. Well, now all of a sudden you have the ability for those people to mobilize, and maybe that changes how races happen, right? Because these people are still democratically elected. What happens if Christians from other parts of the country start making political donations into Minnesota to get rid of these people, at least in the local sense or something like that?
You could.
Like we have the mechanisms to do all this stuff. Like the Constitution in our country, the way we're organized, we already have those things.
Yeah, it definitely could go that way.
I mean, look at that's the civil rights movement, right? The civil rights movement was, we've got all this stuff that's going on down here, and we've got to stop it. And the way that they were allowed to stop it, if it's like an official government thing, if it's official government action, is by drawing attention to the fact that it wasn't happening. By drawing, that you did have these local municipalities that weren't doing anything, that weren't taking action. That changed the groundswell for Americans on the way that they looked at racial discrimination. Something that used to be whatever, we'll allow it to happen, all of a sudden became, well, no, we have to absolutely do something to fix that. But even when they did that, even when we passed the Civil Rights Act, it still limited what instances there would be federal laws to prevent that from happening. So,
well, I guess with that argument, Donald Trump's in luck. He doesn't have to do shit, so that's perfect for him. Or not Donald Trump, Pam Bondi. Yeah, that's perfect for her. She's like, hey, you know what? Like, local issue. I guess she's working on something else, so which is good. Like,
well, there's still stuff that she can do without it being federal law enforcement, right?
Okay, like what?
So I mean, she still has a tremendous platform.
Yeah.
By just being the attorney general, she still has a tremendous platform to talk about this. She has the ability to talk about the fact that local law enforcement isn't taking any action, right? She could sit there and say, look, I'm the AG. I don't have the ability to do this. I don't have federal authority to step in. They're not doing anything. They're taking no action. And so it's incumbent on the people in Minnesota to get these bums out. Because the statute of limitations for some of these torts and some of these crimes is longer than when the next election is going to be, right? You want to care about what your DA does.
Yep.
You want to get rid of a bad DA. Here's a way to do that. So anyway, I know I understand it's incredibly naive of me to want this to be the way things are done, because human nature doesn't allow it, because you're going to get pissed off and you're going to get emotional, and it's going to be so much more satisfying to say, well, I'm going to use the FACE Act against you. You used against my people. I'm going to get against your people. Take that. And Fox News will run it, and it'll go viral on social media, and everybody will applaud. But then we'll chip away a little bit. We'll keep chipping away at the things that makes Republicans and Democrats different.
Yeah, but wouldn't it just make you feel good to see Don Lemon do a little perp walk or something?
I guess. I mean, it made the left feel good for Donald Trump to have a mugshot.
Yep. Yeah.
But we hated that.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely hated it, but that's because it was all bogus charges.
Okay.
You know, like that's kind of my thing. I don't know. I just the when I evaluate the left, or it's like, hey, let them run down that road. We'll move on, but like let them run down that road, and the left will, or Republicans will show up, and then the left will not vote. It's like they just voted in an AG in Virginia that was caught texting about killing the kids of his Republican opponent. And it's like they still swept it. And I'm just like, dude, I don't know, man. Like, it just doesn't seem that. It seems like we're at this graph in life. Like, that's where we're at. Like, we need a strong man, you know, we need a strong man. Yeah.
I str- Having a strong man come in when there's a cultural crisis has never ended well.
No.
When's the last time having a strong man come in when you're unhappy with how culture's doing has worked? Who's the strong man that pulled that off well?
I think about like FDR. Like, things were really bad. We're in a really bad place, and he had the political will. Now, he did have he did have strong support in Congress, in both houses, but I think that he pulled things together fairly well. You can disagree with all the federal programs and everything like that, but really what he did was he counteracted very large like communist movements inside the country. I mean, we're actually in a really bad place as far as like if you want to talk about radicals go. That's one example here that I can think of like right off the top of my head of like kind of a strong man. Like you go back in history, you think about people that are iconic. I mean, that is one. It's just unfortunate because like when you talk about a strong man, like there's usually bad things connected with them, but it's just like, yeah, but at the same time, like look at what they accomplished,
I don't think that FDR accomplished much good. I think that our country rallied because we were going to war.
Right, and he took us through war. Yeah,
I think the Japanese did a good job of rallying the troops for us.
Yeah.
Right. I mean,
yeah.
and the war economy got us out of the depression and all of that. Like, I look at what FDR did as sort of disastrous long term for us. I mean, there's a lot of problems that we have in society now that were started by FDR and the great. I mean, the thing I was talking about earlier about the expansion of the federal government regulating everything that's interstate commerce.
Yeah.
I mean, that exists because FDR threatened to pack the court if the courts didn't rule the way that he wanted them to with regard to his economic policies, which are unconstitutional and are rightfully still unconstitutional.
Yeah.
He just threatened judges with packing the court if they didn't do his way. That's the exact sort of dictatorial stuff that, like, I hate. I don't want any part of that.
Yeah.
I think if you want to look at and I wouldn't call him a strong man, but if you want to look at somebody like Ronald Reagan, Ronald Reagan did a lot of stuff, but he did it within the purview of what is constitutional.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I mean, it was one of those manifestations of like, yes, if we want to implement conservative policy, if we want to be good constitutionalists, if we want to be fiscally conservative, here's what we can do. Like we really can get this engine running hot when we're actually doing things the right way.
Yeah.
As opposed to like watching Jimmy Carter, or if we would have had, look, Reagan was so good that he made Clinton governor, or made Clinton govern as like a light Republican.
Yeah.
Right. When you look at the positions that Clinton took, the reason he was able to win office is because he basically was Republican adjacent. He wasn't some sort of far left lunatic pushing stuff.
Mm-hmm.
He was like, oh, we've got to cut welfare spending and we've got to fight. We have to be tough on crime and all this sort of stuff.
He couldn't jump too far to the left too quick because Reagan was still like right there.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, the framework was there for how to properly govern a country. So I don't know. That's I don't want a strong man to come in right now. Like what I want is more. I mean, I want like an enlightenment of like actual conservative values. like from the ground up. And I think that's one of the great things that we've seen with the response to the trans movement.
Yeah.
The absurdity and how far the left went and pushed it on the trans stuff created an enlightenment of family values. Where people just finally got to the point where, to your point, for a long time, they were just like, whatever. Wait a minute, who's reading what to my kids?
Yep.
Right? It just finally got to the point where they pushed it too far, and it caused a big backlash in the other direction. That's what I want to see. That's how I think we most effectively counter what a lot that the left does, is we kind of, let them go too far. And we're not letting them, we're opposing them doing it, but we're doing so within the strictures of, or the structure of what a constitutional republic should look like, and just let them hang themselves. Like there's an adage that lawyers say, never interrupt your opponent when they're beating themselves.
Yeah, and they really are. Like the church thing this last weekend was a huge mistake. That is for sure. So I'm interested to see kind of how that group in Minnesota in particular pivots, or if they continue to make the same mistake, or if their PR is like, okay guys, like we're not going to do that again. Just continue to follow ICE around and blow your whistles.
I mean, look, Mass for me is a sacrament. Like it's a sacred thing. And so I hope wholeheartedly that these idiots up in Minnesota and other parts of the country don't go interfere with a sacred thing like a mass or a service or people going to church. I very, very much hope that they just don't do that. But if they do, it's not going to go well for them.
No,
it's not going to engender. I mean, like, first of all, like, it's not going to intimidate people. It's not going to stop people from supporting ICE. If anything, it's going to have the opposite effect. It's going to have people say, well, wait a minute. If those are the people that are opposed to ICE and all this stuff,
yep,
maybe there's something there. Or at the very least, it pours cold water on people that, maybe have mixed feelings about immigration enforcement. We talked about this at the start of the Trump administration, right? We talked about the fact that there is a political capital that has to be spent to do this. And Americans are all in favor of violent criminals, right? You have like 80 some odd % of Americans that are in favor of deporting violent criminals.
Right.
Beyond that, best you get is a 50-50 split on whether or not somebody is an economic,
migrant
or something like that. Beyond that, you're below water on deporting people that are already here. So like it's gonna be unpopular. We talked about it, and that's exactly how this is bore out, right? I mean, that's the common attack. Oh, I thought this was just gonna be the worst of the worst. I thought this was the violent criminals. That guy's not a violent criminal, and you get more and more public opposition to it.
Yeah.
Great way. Well, not a great way. It's awful that it's happening, but an effect of being so heinous and opposing all these churches and interrupting with church service is you're going to get a lot of people in America that would have otherwise maybe have been open to those ideas on immigration and it being wrong are going to be like, well, I don't want to be associated with you. That's too far.
So then you're saying like this is rebuilding political capital to continue the deportations, like in a way?
I think that
was that your point, or are you going the other way?
No, my point is that it is destroying the political capital the opposition has.
Yeah.
And if it's handled the right way, if the Christian community, if Republicans handle it the right way, it will continue to destroy political capital that the left has in opposing immigration like this. But if the right responds in the wrong way, then it reinvigorates. That's just the nature of it. And like we've talked about before, the hard thing is that you can't trust the media to fairly cover it. So they're gonna try to give cover to the political left and make it look like Trump's this big bad mean evil guy no matter what he does. So, well, I want to take some of that energy and bring it to Texas, and talk about, because this is obviously dealing with Epic City and Collin County in North Texas is a big topic. It continues to be a big topic.
Yeah.
The spread of the Islamification of America, the Islamification of Texas continues to be a big thing. I was actually at a political debate last week, and a candidate who I will not name literally got up there and tried to say that Islam wasn't a religion. That was his take.
Smart.
You know what? They don't even get First Amendment protections because Islam's not a religion. It's a political movement, so we don't have to afford them any First Amendment protections. Forgetting the fact that, with free speech, you do have to afford political protections to political movements.
Right. Same amendment, yeah.
It's just like a totally absurd way of looking at it. And like you talk about like destroying political capital. What a really awful way to try to win that political dispute is to get out there and say, oh, well, you know what? You know that religion that's got those mosques everywhere where people kneel and pray and they, live their lives in accordance with the edicts and all that. That's not actually a religion.
Yeah.
We've been wrong about that for about 1,000 years. Not really religion.
But he was being bold.
Yeah.
He was trying to... Yeah, that was I did not hear that, but that is amazing to hear. Glad that that stage is full of people, so that's good.
Well, it goes back to the question of how do you handle those issues here in Texas? Because one of the things we talked about, there was a really great piece of legislation that was promoted by Candy Noble and Jeff Leach and some of our folks up in Collin County. And I'm sure there were others in North Texas, but those are the two names I know off the top of my head.
Sure.
And it was an amendment to the Texas Fair Housing Act. I'm not going to go super lawyer, but one of the things about the Texas Fair Housing Act is it creates an exception or exemption for religious institutions, where a religious institution under the Texas Fair Housing Act is allowed to discriminate or show preferential treatment, however you want to frame it, show preferential treatment for people of the same religion when it comes to housing. So how they rent houses, how they sell houses, how they allow people to occupy houses. Mm-hmm. And that makes sense because you'll have, for example, a monastery for monks, or you'll have a convent for nuns to live in, where it's like, yep, we are providing housing. That's part of what we're doing here, but not everybody can live here. You have to be a nun to live here. Right. Or you might have something like, this is the pastor's house. We own this house. The church owns this house. We will not allow it to be occupied by anybody other than the pastor. Or the church, like there's some churches in the Dallas area that, they own a bunch of houses. And that's part of their, what they were given. People will deed them the houses when they pass away or whatever. And they will rent those houses out to the clergy or to the executives within the church, other members of the church. But they'll limit who can rent those properties and live there to people that live in the church. Mm-hmm. That makes sense, right? And you have there's an exemption for that under the Texas Fair Housing Act. Well, that exemption is part of what Epic City was trying to rely upon in their community and saying, well, look, we have this thing. There's an exemption where a religious institution is allowed to discriminate based or show preferential treatment for selling property, selling houses, renting houses, letting people occupy of the same religion. That's what we're doing. So the great workaround, and the reason that I'm particularly fond of this workaround, is because it targeted the issue specifically in the sense that it says, okay, we're all right if, as the church, you're doing that, like we talked about. You have a monastery, you have a convent, you have something like that. You have properties that the church owns that its leadership can live in. What we're not okay with is you developing a large subdivision under that concept, right? We're not okay. And so what the law says is that exemption in the Texas Fair Housing Act does not apply for a subdivision of 25 acres or more. Mm-hmm. As you pointed out, you can still do a lot in less than 25 acres
is a good amount of land.
Right.
You could build a lot of houses on that.
But the idea being that we're going to prevent these sort of isolationist religious communities where we're going to build however many houses on 500 acres or whatever. It did a great job of just addressing that specifically while still allowing totally reasonable stuff for churches to be able to do. Whatever religion you are, right? You want to have a house that your imam can live in. If you're a Muslim, you can do that. You can have a house that's just for your imam. Or if you, like I said, if you want to have, a convent for nuns to live in, you can still do that.
Yeah. And so they added that recently?
They added that in the last legislative session. So that is now the law in Texas.
I wonder why they did like 25 acres? I wonder why it was why not more than an acre? Or 2 acres or whatever they want to say. But it's still a good amount of land. It's like, if you wanted, you could build a skyscraper. You could have an all-encompassing city inside a tower if you wanted to on 25 acres. It's like,
right.
I'm just wondering about I don't know the particulars about why that amount of land, because
I'm going to guess that there are some churches that have things that are 24 acres. I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to guess that there was that's a good question. Maybe we can have some of the authors on the podcast and ask them that. I'm going to guess that there was something along those lines. Where it's, again, we want to leave enough space that if you are a church and you want to have a
community,
you can, and you don't have to have it be on a postage stamp.
Yeah.
So I'm going to guess there was some pre-existing stuff like that went into that acreage, but that's a good example of good governance, right? There is acting constitutionally, acting within the structures of what we have as a constitutional republic, legislators passing a law, going through the whole process and specifically addressing a particular concern. I'd like that. That's what I want more of, as opposed to somebody saying, well, it's not even a religion, so we don't care. Let's discriminate against them, and it's okay for us to do that because they're not. Hey guys, guess what? Theologian here, it's not a real religion. We can go ahead and do that. Hey buddy, what about all the case law and all this, that talks about it? No, they're wrong. It's not a religion. We don't have to worry about it.
Yeah. That's interesting. And look, that's cool that they passed that. I think the first time we had talked about this, one of my first statements was they are going to build their neighborhood. At the end of the day, and I know Texas hates it, and they're in the Republican chats and everything. It's I just hate to tell everyone. It's if a group of people in America want to build next door to each other, they are going to find a will or a way. There's Muslim lawyers, there's Muslim architects, there's Muslim construction company. You know what I'm saying? They're going to find a will or a way. Now, should we I guess maybe put up a fight is not the right way to say that, but should we just say, okay, well, they're going to eventually get it, so let's just let them do that? No, I don't think that. And I think that again, you should, hey, look, if you guys want to make your city, that's cool, but again, you're not just going to become an enclave, and here's why. And then here are the reasons you're not going to do that, and this is how we're going to make sure that doesn't happen. So I don't know. It's just a very tricky situation, but it's led to some really I've seen really smart people say dumb things, and I've seen really dumb people accidentally say something smart, but it's just a really weird topic to hear people talk about.
Well, because it's a new frontier.
Yeah.
Right? I think almost universally as Republicans, there's conservatives. I think Americans, by and large, believe if you're a property owner, it starts with you should be able to do what you want with your property.
Yeah.
As a religious person, you should be able to practice your religion the way that you want to. Association, you are free to associate with who you want to associate with.
Right.
These are all basic, fundamental constitutional rights. We all sort of start there that you should be able to do that.
Yeah.
But with the concept of one man's rights end where another's begin, and with the idea that we do live in a society, and that society is bigger than any one small community, you start looking at, okay, well, what specifically don't we like about this? So for example, if you had, I don't know, if you had a bunch of Muslims that decided that they wanted to go out and collectively buy a bunch of acres out in the middle of nowhere, and they wanted to build a subdivision, or they wanted to build out homes for them and all of their friends. We all want to live together. We want to live in community, so we're going to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly there are going to be people that are on the extreme that don't want that to happen. But I mean, I think generally Americans, Texans aren't opposed to that.
Mm.
You do that and you say, well, we don't want to let anybody else live out here either. Okay, there's the problem. That's what we have an issue with. You say, well, if you want to live out here, we're going to kind of govern things by Sharia law.
Mm-hmm.
Or we're going to govern some, well, then there's your problem, right? That's unconstitutional. The U.S. Constitution is the highest law of the land. Nothing can supplant that, right? I mean, I think when addressing it, it's a matter of saying, well, what is it that we have a problem with? And let's address those problems.
Right.
So one of the things that the act or the legislation I was just talking about did separately, not in the Fair Housing Act or a different section of it, talked about the fact that you could not have a community where there was any sort of tribunal other than, federal or state courts for problem resolution, which takes away this whole, we're going to have a Sharia court, but per the homeowners association that's going to, resolve these sorts of things. So that's, I don't know. Am I off on that? When I'm walking through that, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, and that's kind of what their whole thing was. Like, they're going to pretty much make Sharia, and like there was this talking head, is like, he was a Muslim guy, and he's like, you guys sound dumb when you say Sharia law, because Sharia just means law, so you guys are just saying law. And I was like, checkmate, we'll leave you alone. but like that's kind of what their whole thing was, is like, okay, we'll, on the surface, we'll follow the rules, we'll get the subdivision, but then in the HOA, which, as we know, HOAs have become very, very powerful, and they're going to make all these different rules, and you would have to abide by them essentially. And really, no one would want to live there unless you wanted to be a part of the Muslim community, right? And it's like, okay. And so I do like that the state was like, okay, well, you can't do this, you can't do that. It took a lot of the teeth out of it. I mean, at the end of the day, they could just make a Facebook group and be like, yeah, these are like some things that, we would like people to do. But then like, and again, if everyone is like if people show up to the HOA meeting and then, and they put themselves on trial, and that's kind of what ends up happening, the only way that that's going to fall apart is if someone has an issue with another person and then they don't show up to the voluntary, Sharia court or whatever like that. And that's when the drama is going to happen. And sure enough, it will, because, like, someone's not going to pay for their shawarma, and then it's going to be this big back and forth thing. And we've seen Afghanistan with the goats and the valleys, and it's been going on for 1,000 years. It's going to happen out there in Hunt County. So coming to a county near you.
Well, and that gets back to, again, addressing the thing that you don't like about it, right?
Yeah.
It's one of those things that this is where Islam, like I said, presents a unique situation, because, America having a basis in Christianity is sort of standard, right? I mean, that's what most of us are accustomed to. That's what the founding largely was. I mean, a lot of our founding fathers were believers in some capacity. Christian values, predominate America. But even when we have other groups like, like Judaism, the difference between Judaism and Islam is that Judaism generally isn't out there trying to go convert everybody to also being Jewish. It's, hey, we're practicing our deal, we're doing our thing, leave us alone and we'll just keep doing our thing. The difference with Islam from its start, from the very beginning, right? Like, once Muhammad had a little bit of power, he wanted to force everybody to follow him. He wanted to force everybody to become Muslim. And as the faith spread through the Middle East, it was the same thing.
Yeah.
You had to do it or else. I mean, that's generally the part of Christianity that we're kind of embarrassed about, right? Like, we're not always super proud of the times as Christians that we've put people to death for not converting. That's still part of the deal for Muslims all over the world.
Right.
Being apostate if you were to leave the faith, and the proper punishment being death. Like that's it. That's part of it.
Right.
So with a lot of the other faiths, like Buddhism or a lot of the things that we have in America, like a lot of our history in America of interfaith, there wasn't this sort of, it's not an apostolic faith where you're out there trying to spread the word and get more and more people to join your faith. You're just kind of practicing Taoism, or you're practicing Judaism, or you're doing that sort of thing. I guess really the only context we have for it is like Protestant and Catholic, or different denominations within Protestant faith. But then again, those you largely have the same cultural values and the same norms and the same way that you look at things. Mm-hmm. But the issue with the spread of Islam in America is that it also wants to be the predominant culture. It doesn't just want to be, hey, leave us alone, let us practice our faith. It's like, no, the goal is for this to be a Muslim country. And there may not be some central organizing committee in America that's doing that. There probably is, but there may not be. But that is generally the trend of what, if you follow what the teachings of Islam are, they would want. They would want America to more and more and more and more follow Islamic teaching and become an Islamic country.
Yeah.
There's a reason that you don't have, there's a reason you have a proliferation around the world of Muslim dictatorships. Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's one Jewish country, and it's because God told them that was theirs. Mm-hmm. Right? I mean, it's not like you have across the world a bunch of like Jewish dictatorships, and we sort of are moving away from Christian dictatorships. Like the name in the game right now, if you got a new dictator, there's a good chance that it's a Muslim new dictator.
Yeah, good. Yeah, there's a good chance. I think that is, and their clergy don't do them any favors, because they have like very well-spoken people, but man, it's like all the one, obviously algorithm's going to feed you what you want, but like all the ones I see, it's like they're really well-spoken, they're this, they're that. And then it always gets in there. Like, we are going to we're going to continue to have tons of kids, and we're going to do this, and we're going to do, and like the world will be Islamic. It's like, dude, you're not doing yourself any favors. Not that we didn't know that was already in the text, but it's just like, that is what, that is the mission.
Right.
And it's kind of like, it is and it isn't. Like, as Christians, we're supposed to, go out and spread the faith, but like totally different than the way that, generally speaking, Muslims have done throughout history. And of course, we've had our crusades and everything.
Our justified crusades.
Yeah, they were justified, but absolutely, very. But again, and this is why I get angry, because they were so discombobulated. Like there is a
if Kyle was running the crusades, it would have worked, what I'm hearing.
No.
That's what I'm hearing.
No, but like throughout history, of course, Muslims have their military campaigns that have fallen apart because of infighting and whatnot, but not at the rate or the scale that like Christians have had throughout history. And that like we're so like it's just like the Western culture we're not a monolith. Like we're constantly subdividing each other, but like there's this thing about these other cultures, which we kind of started talking a little bit before we started recording, about like little communities off on their own, but like Christians really don't do that. Like we're constantly moving around, and everyone is our neighbor, and we just have this like mindset of just like we just don't we're just kind of like worldly people in a way. And I think like Protestantism is, I forget exactly who had made this argument, but like, Catholicism is like, it's like for people for the land, like they settle down, they make communities, yada, yada, yada. Right. But like Protestantism is like, it's almost like the analogy is like a C word. religion where it's like a group of people will get on a boat and like by the time they land wherever they want to land, it's something different. And then like the next people, they'll move farther down the river, and it's like, and it just kind of keeps, and that's, that's kind of always been a thing, with the West. And it's something I'm jealous of. Long story short, I'm jealous of how, like how together the Islamic community is, how together the Jewish community is. Like they're so focused on staying together, keeping the old ways, supporting each other, and growing their faith. Like it's something to study.
Yeah. I think a bit of that might be the outside looking in, because I mean, Shiites and Sunnis do not like each other.
No, right.
So like, I can't imagine, like, as much as Protestants and Catholics have had their quarrels in the past.
Sure.
The Sunnis and the Shiites are probably top of the list as far as interfaith bloodshed. I mean, they really
go
really
after
don't
each
like
other
each
for
other.
sure. Yeah. Yeah.
My thing is just that it's an uncomfortable thing, because for the longest time in America, you could be a Christian, you could exist as a Christian, and the other religions that you interacted with did not want to supplant you in the culture. They just wanted the ability. I mean, that was the thing, like First Amendment. Hey, just let us come here and like just do our thing and don't bother us.
Right. And there was so little amount of them.
And so for the first time with Islam, it is another religion, another culture that wants to supplant ours. Right. They believe that their way is better than ours, and they want it to be in place. Yeah. And that is the actual conflict. Right? You have two different visions on how, the world should function, how government should function, how families should function, how society should function. And they are in direct conflict for each other in the most prosperous nation in the history of the world. And the thing that Christians are going to have to become accustomed with and have the steel reserve on is to say, and this is what, this is where the Marxists have created a great opening. Marxists have spent so many years attacking Western civilization, attacking Western culture, really just trying to tear it down any way that they can, to where you have so many people within America that don't think that America is the greatest place that's ever existed, that apologize for what America is, and that don't have the ability to say, no, our culture is better. Our way of doing things is better. It's not a separate but equal. It's not everybody has their own. No. It's better for women to have rights, right? It's better to extend to people the freedom of religion, to where if they want to be a faith, they can be, but if they don't have to be. Like the way that we do things is better. It is better to value education. Like the way that we have organized ourselves is a better way of doing it. Not to be some sort of like white nationalist. That's not what I'm saying, because I'm talking about America and the spirit and the core of what America is. We have to have the courage to be able to say that. And again, because the Marxists have been tearing at that for years, you have so many on the American political left and some on the American political right, like old Tucker Carlson, that wants to go out there and constantly be apologetic for America and, oh, well, if only we were as socially conservative as Maduro in Venezuela. Like, that's the sort of stuff that we just got to get rid of, that line of thinking. America's the greatest country that's ever been. We could be better, but our way of doing things is the best way that anybody has figured out up until this point.
Yeah, and I don't know how much that Tucker Carlson kind of line of thinking has been sticking, but I think people just enjoy listening to him, or the people he's had on recently. But I will say yes. So you were getting to, this is an immigration issue that, going back to when America in the 60s and 70s was a homogenous country of like 85-90% like white Christians. We had ancestors that came from Europe. We were like third or fourth generation. You would wake up and everywhere you would look, it'd be just like Christians. But then like every day, especially in such a small time frame, that no country has experienced this amount of immigration, especially from places so far away in history. So now you are waking up and seeing, like, for instance, like Muslims only, yes, Islamic, people that follow Islam is like only 2% or something of the population. It's really small, but it's it's also in conjunction with tons of mass immigration over the past 10 years. There's parts of America that really don't look like America. There's very clear parts of town that are like, they're not America anymore. And I think all these things kind of bubble up, and it's just that, Islam is, the city itself is kind of more of just like a piñata or like a whooping boy, of like a whipping post of like, it's an immigration issue. It's all these things wrapped up into this. And that's why it's like, hey, you guys aren't doing yourselves any favor by like going out of your way to do this. Like, you're actually bringing light to a lot of different issues that no one was really paying attention to.
Yeah. I don't really care how much America looks. Like, whether it's white or, and I mean, obviously, as a mixed race person myself, like, the whiteness of America is not a priority for me. It's a matter of, do you have American values or not? Because I'll tell you what, like, you could bring in all the white communists you want to, and I don't want that, right? Like, what I want is, the way I look at immigration is this: I want people that want to come to America to be Americans. I don't want people that come to America to be their nationality in America, right? So if you're Indian and you want to come to America and be American and embrace our culture and assimilate into America, I'm good with that. If you want to come here to be Indian in America, if you want to come here to be Somali in America, if you want to come here to be, whatever, Iranian in America, that's where I have a problem from an immigration standpoint. Because look, what we're talking about is, again, like, the core is the Christian values, right? If you want to be I look at a country like Ethiopia, right, that has very deep Christian roots. You want to come be a Christian American from Ethiopia, come be a Christian American in Ethiopia. If you want to come be an American here. But when you start coming here and wanting to change it to make it the way some other country is, I think that's where you run into the problem.
Right. Well, that is the problem we've been running into, because all the people that have been coming, like, I mean, how many Christian Indians are there in America right now? Very few. I mean, we know a few, obviously, but like most Indians, when they come here, they don't give up their religion, which is not a prerequisite, but like, they go and find communities of India. I mean, they're essentially Indians, like, do kind of what Muslims are doing. It's just we don't happen to like that religion right now. The West has been at odds with Islam for a very long time, but Indians are doing the same thing that Muslims are doing. They're finding their own neighborhoods. They're buying new builds all around each other, and there's neighborhoods that are almost exclusively Indian. Same with the Somalians. That's the problem with the immigration thing, is like, people will naturally just go to where their people are. And then once that happens, there's not really a great amount of assimilation, that's why it was unique when the settlers were coming here. People call them immigrants. I mean, they were really settlers. They were getting off the boat. They were either getting drafted into the Union Army, like during the Civil War, or they were getting a grant and like, hey, you can go stake your claim out wherever. You really didn't know who your neighbor was going to be. Yes, there are parts that are like mainly Scandinavian or like Scots-Irish in the Appalachians and whatnot, but like, really, you were immediately being mixed. Right, you were being mixed in with all the other Westerners. But like, we have this situation now where people are, and we don't really have much immigration from other Christian nations. The biggest blimp that we have had is Ukrainians. Right, I don't mind Ukrainian women coming here. That's mostly what it's been. They've been Christian. Okay, cool. But like, that's really it. Like, everyone else has really not been really, homogenous with our society at all. I think it's like all of it. It's going to be a very tricky thing for Americans to be like, hey, look, I respect that you have your religion. And of course I want you to continue to practice your religion, but you also need to realize, like, you can practice your religion, but you need to like assimilate. Like, you can't just come here. use all the government, everything, build your community, and it's kind of like you're almost like taking and you're not giving. And that's the issue I think a lot of people have with it.
Well, because we've had some of that like pocketing in the past, right? I mean, think about New York and sort of like the famed immigration history of New York, where you're going to have the Italians that come in and live in the Italian neighborhoods, and you're going to have the Germans come in and live in the German neighborhoods, and nobody wants the French here. You're going to have the English come in. You're going to have the Irish come in. You've had that. You in the past, it was the Catholics, right? Like the original opposition to religion coming to America is we don't want so many Catholics coming here. We don't want Irish, we don't want Italians because they're Catholics.
The Roman Popery.
Right. We don't want them here, right? And so there was a lot of like evil discrimination that went on.
Yeah.
And so, but the thing about that is that when you look at Catholicism and you look at, Protestantism, it is such a massive overlap and there is such a shared value that it's like, yeah, we may disagree about the Pope. We may disagree about Mary. We may disagree about, salvation through faith or faith and works, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
But, the rules for how to live your life are pretty much the same.
Yeah.
So we're good there.
That's what made it easier.
Right.
A little easier, yeah.
And then you have these other religions that would come over here in the past, and it's just like, yeah, to your point, you would have Russian Jews that would come in and they'd have their neighborhood or something like that. But they weren't trying to make the rest of the country that way.
Right.
They were just here practicing their religion. And they wanted to come here. And so this is the other part of it. All those immigrant groups that came here to America, to your point, back then, they were coming here because they wanted to be American, right? They wanted to have the freedoms that we had. They wanted to be able, this was sort of the remarkable thing about our country. And I think one of the things that gave us a huge head start over the rest of the world is when people were first settling here, they were going into the total unknown. Right? You had a spirit of people that were in Europe. They were so desperate for an opportunity to be prosperous and have freedom, and in some cases be able to practice their religion, that they would put their lives and their families' lives on the line to cross the Atlantic in a wooden ship to come here.
It's crazy.
Or they would literally sell everything that they own to buy tickets on a bigger metal ship later on to come here and just give it a shot. And that spirit, that sort of that determination and that independence and that craving for building something better for yourself and your family is the core of what makes America great. And so when we have people that want to come here and do that, that's awesome. We love to have it. Please come here and do that here in America. But if your thing is, I just want the money that's in America, and I hate their values. I want to come and get their money and then change them to have my values. That's where we have an immigration problem.
Yep. And there's a lot of that, and it's encouraged by the left.
Right.
It is encouraged by going back there is this much immigration here is because of the left and the Marxists, and they know that if they can just get the demographic change to happen, and we were very close to that happening, that's when they know they cook the books, like they got it, right?
Well, this is where, I think a big thing that we have in America, and this may just be mine, but like we have so many mixed race families and mixed race people that some of that stuff is just like, we just go back to what the values are, right? I'm mixed race. My girlfriend, her kids are mixed race. We'll be, being a mixed race family. It's like, yeah, the races don't matter. The skin pigmentation doesn't matter. What matters is the common values. Hey, we all believe the same thing. We're teaching the kids this way. This is what we're doing. Like, I think that's where a lot of people on the political right like feed into the mythology the left has about the big racist evil Republican side. Is it really like the race doesn't matter? What is the content of your character? We're close to MLK. What's the content of your character? What do you want to be? How do you want to live? What are your values? That's what really matters, and that's what we need to have so we need to be homogeneous about, right? I don't really care if we all have the same skin color or not, because I know a lot of raging communists that have the same skin color that are white as driven snow, the homogeneity that we need is in what is our shared values as a country.
Yeah, and I don't know if it is the being white makes you have those values, but like around the world, like that's the, I guess that's the debate here, is kind of like, be like, well, I don't want those people, and it's like, oh, because they're not white. It's like, well, no, because they don't have the values, but it just so happens to be that, like, unless you're white in a very other select countries, or like kind of almost bordering countries like America, Mexicans and South Americans do have a lot of the same values because they're Catholic, right? Like that's kind of thing, but like they don't have those values really in Africa, even though there are Christian nations in Africa. It's like that's kind of the game the leftists play, but again, it's
because it's Western civilization.
Right.
I mean,
it just happens to be white.
Yeah, the long and the short of it is because the basis of all this sort of stuff, where you have this sort of, where Christianity really took a strong hold and started doing things like building universities and developing a culture in addition to it, is the Roman Empire, right? It is Europe. Like, that's where it starts. So yeah, the Western civilization having Judeo-Christian values, yes, that is going to mean that your core of that are a bunch of people that lived in Europe. Maybe some of them are lighter or darker, depending upon, like you said, if they're from Scotland or if they're from Italy. But yeah, that's where you're going to have the core of it. It's just a matter of, like, in America, we have this amazing opportunity where, and this is the thing that makes us the greatest country in the world, where people from all over the world can come here and prosper because of the freedom that we provide. You can come here and be a very prosperous Buddhist if you want to, and the government's not going to throw you in jail for being a Uyghur because you're an American. We have the First Amendment. But we fail as a country if we don't expect these people to fully become Americans. It doesn't mean they have to be any particular religion, but it does mean that they have to become part of our culture and not come here with the intent of changing our culture and changing who we are. That's sort of, the core of it, and which kind of transitions us to the last thing we want to talk about is MAGA. Right. There's always been the question of, like, what is MAGA? Yeah. And I think at the outset, I would have said MAGA is whatever Donald Trump says it is, right? It's sort of his movement. He started it. Yeah. What he defines what MAGA is. Well, we're coming on the lame duck part of his time in office. Yep. He no longer gets to dictate what MAGA is. And it's funny for me, not really funny, it's interesting for me, I think, primarily. I was driving across Texas and I saw a lot of billboards. And I saw billboards for very different Republican candidates with very different philosophies, and they both said, I'm a MAGA Republican. Yeah. Like, one of them actually said they are a MAGA Trump Republican, right? So it's just like, well, what does that mean now? What does the MAGA word even, because I'll have to say, I kind of feel like calling yourself MAGA is turning into calling yourself conservative. It's just sort of like, I don't know. It mean, you want to like, you're not just a Republican, you're a conservative, or you're MAGA. Right. Yeah, I agree. And it's funny you just made that comparison, because that's kind of what I was going to go with. Is like, you have people calling themselves MAGA is a way for them to kind of distance themselves a little bit from a Republican Party that doesn't have the best track record. And again, that means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. But like, one thing that comes to mind is like George W. Bush and like the disastrous wars, right? And like, and all the debt that came with it, and the blood and everything. But like, that's kind of like, well, no, I'm like the new and improved conservative. It's kind of like the way of doing that. And because if we look back, when Trump first came on the scene, a lot of people that we like today were never Trumpers, right? And, MAGA was a dirty word to the conservative movement. And like, people did not like Trump, and they didn't like the word MAGA. And so
that kind of has carried forward to now politicians are being like, if I call myself MAGA, and again, who knows what that means at this point, but like that is a way of kind of getting the new wave Republican to show up and vote for them in the primary. Do they do a good job? I mean, do they do a good job at like actually identifying what that means? I don't know.
No.
Yeah, like I'm not.
My answer is no. I mean, it's always interesting for me when I see, candidates like, I'm an America First candidate. And it's like, okay, well, what does that mean? Like, what does it mean to be an America First or a MAGA candidate? Like, you're using that terminology, but like, what are the strictures? It's like, what is it that says, oh, this is actually like, this is the criteria that we use to say this is a America First policy or this is a MAGA policy.
Yeah.
Because I'll tell you, there are a lot of people that would have called themselves a big Tea Party conservative that now call themselves MAGA that are taking very different views on the world because of what they're doing now, right? It's like, well, what are you? Are you just with the flow at the moment, or does this actually mean something to you?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's a lot of stuff that Trump does that's just like, yeah, that's not conservative. That's not conservative at all. Like
it's MAGA.
That's liberal. Like that was a policy that Democrats had up until you. And now it's like, okay, well, are you a conservative still, or are you now a different group because you identify yourself as being MAGA? I don't know. It's just you talk about like how we define it now, because you're going to have, we're going to have a 2028 election where there will be multiple members of the Trump administration that will try to be the most MAGA.
Mm-hmm.
I'm the most MAGA. I'm the most America First. Well, if we're going to say you're the most, then what's the standard? What are we judging that on? What's the criteria of it?
Yeah. Like the Texas Republican Party, they have a platform. It's very official. These are our planks.
Yes.
Yeah. And so like, exactly what that means, but there's no like MAGA convention and let's vote on whatever. There's no America First, and like America First is now kind of like the 2.0 of MAGA. Like it's kind of evolving. And I guess I can make like a few examples on like how they're like definitely different than each other. But like, as far as like a very clear policy, I think they overlap a lot. Mm-hmm. Again, it's just with the moment. I mean, the
thing that I can sense that's the biggest difference between MAGA and America First is how much you hate Israel. So I feel like your America First crowd they're a little bit more anti-Israel than your MAGA crowd is. Yeah,
I would say that is definitely a fair assessment. On trade as well. Well, on trade, from America First to conservative. Conservative is, Milton Friedman, free trade, the whole like, how are you going to make a pencil unless you have completely open borders and everything like that. He was, no tariffs or anything like that. But America First is like closed borders, tariff policy, to the extent of like, literally we want to, they have this, they're like infatuated with the idea that like, at least some of them are like, there's going to be, the Ford factory that's going to come back, and it's going to be, and like, they're pissed now. Like when they see these new factories, it's all robots and the lights are dim. And it's like, yeah, that's still a good thing, that tons of people have to go in there and maintain the robots. The infrastructure is here, the tax base is here. Those are all good things. But I mean, like trade and taxes, to some extent. Yeah. I mean,
there's used to call those people Democrats.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that as far as we can see on the curve that we are, like, I guess they used to call it free trade. And then it kind of like evolved to MAGA was more like fair trade. And America First is, I don't want, like, it's kind of like protectionist trade in a way is kind of the way that I'm seeing it.
It's just the Democrat policies from the 90s.
Right. Yeah. No. And
2000s, I guess. Democrats were always against free trade because they wanted to be able. Yeah, they hated it because they wanted to be able to pay their union bosses. So you need to go unions. We want to stop businesses from being able to, set prices in a free market for labor. So let's force force, you have your states where you are required to be in a union to have certain jobs.
Yeah.
And the only way that we can make it, remotely affordable to maintain this union stuff is by slapping massive tariffs on other countries.
Yes. And I think that as far as we can see right now, it's always going to ebb and flow, but the free open trade and NAFTA and everything, the deindustrialization of our country, that was fed from both sides. That was like cheap labor overseas, importation, no tariffs, but it was also like the unions were very expensive. They were very cumbersome and everything like that. So it's always going to be an ebb and take, but there's definitely a difference between the two parties of like, and again, I don't know, like that's the one that sticks out to me most, because that's what I'm most interested in, is like economy and trade.
Well, the Democrats have just become Republicans on trade because they are now more in favor of free trade because it's against what Trump is wanting to do.
Well, yeah, like they don't. It's all about just hating Trump. Whatever he does, I mean, he like literally whatever he does is just like they just cannot get with it. Mm-hmm. The tariffs that he had and then Biden kept and then he kept are now bad again. It's just like, all right. Yeah, I mean, and then, America First and MAGA. I mean, what are some big differences you see? I mean, it's kind of all over the place, especially in the primary season when there's so many people just like trying to vibe for some kind of platform.
I think it's a matter of branding. Because, I mean, like, here's a question. Is Thomas Massie America First?
I don't know if he's called himself America First.
Oh, I don't know if he has or not. But is he America First?
No.
Because I know Trump would not allow him to be MAGA because Trump hates Massie, right?
Yeah.
But so here's the thing is like, well, what, other than the fact that Massie differs from the president on things like, I don't know, like, pedophilia rings, what is it, what policies does Massie have that would take him out of being MAGA or take him out of being America First?
Well, like when you started from the beginning, I mean, MAGA is kind of whatever Trump makes it, and he'll still have that sway for some things. But again, I think by the time we get into the next presidential round, I think MAGA will kind of be like a Tea Party term. Like it's kind of going to be shelved a little bit and will be, America First. But if people don't want to like, they'll come up with a new term. But
it's like, is Governor Abbott MAGA? He's been endorsed by Trump, every time he's run for office during Trump's time in politics.
I don't know.
Make Abbott MAGA?
I don't know. Has he? Yeah. I mean, it doesn't really mean anything. I mean, I think America First means, as far as the, social media realm or whatever, means more than MAGA at this point because it's been so diluted. It's been so like, it's like, it's just been used so much. It's like, yeah, what does that mean? And it's kind of like, well, if, Trump wants this or that or whatever, it's like, that's MAGA. It's like, okay, that's fine. I mean, I don't know.
Well, it's interesting. One of the reasons that this came to mind for me is there was recently a survey that was done that talked about the fact that I think for the first time there are more people that identify as independents than identify as being part of either political party. I think it's something like, and I may have that wrong, but I think it's something like 54% of people identify as independents. And then everyone else just sort of splits evenly, kind of basically between whether they're a Democrat or they're a Republican.
Right.
And when it comes to like young people, gosh, I think it's something like 71%, something very, very high where young people identify as independents and they don't identify with either political party. And so the problem with that is it does become a matter of branding because, what sort of brand are still at the end of the day, you go to cast your vote, it's an R or a D.
Right.
So you got the parties still have to find a way. If there are 54% of people that are independents that don't identify with either party, well, those parties still have to reach those people somehow. And so what I would be very interested to see is what the overlap is in people that identify as Republicans but identify as MAGA or America First. and how many people that identify themselves as independents would identify themselves as MAGA or America First. Because what you could very easily, and like I said, without knowing the numbers, you could have two equally true things. You have your historical Republicans. They have dwindled in number because people are MAGA or America First, and Trump brought together a new coalition. So you have people that support Trump that historically would not have identified as a Republican. And so that's why you have it. On the flip side, you could have, the Republican Party under Reagan was a big tent party. So there were many more people that would have identified themselves as Republican being underneath that big tent. But as the Tea Party movement and the MAGA movement and now America First have more and more litmus tests consolidated what it is to be a Republican and everybody else is a rhino, then they are pushing people out of the tent and making them independents. Either of those could be true. I'd be interested in what the numbers would be, though.
Either of those could be true, and I think that the tone or all the labeling will change after the primaries. Once it's like, okay, this is our only candidate. You're always going to have the people like, well, my primary candidate lost, and I'm definitely not going to vote for them. And it's like, hey, cool, that's your thing. Like, you do have the right to reserve your vote. You don't necessarily have to come out and vote. And it's like sometimes politicians are not worthy of your vote. They didn't do what they were going to say or even try, or they lied, or they did the opposite or whatever, right? But I think the independents, I'm assuming, I'd like to see if they call themselves, and they're identifying as independents, but then like ask them how, the last 3 presidential cycles, how did you vote?
Right.
It'd be like Democrat, Democrat, Republican, or Republican, Republican, Republican. You know what I'm saying? Like, they call themselves independent, but like, are we really, because you only have 2 choices, essentially. Everyone that's voting third party are like actual like outliers, like to an extreme degree. So yeah, I would like to see that.
Okay, well, I was a touch dyslexic. It's 45% identify as political independents.
That's still a high number. I mean, it's still a high number.
40. So yeah, this is a Gallup poll. A record high 45% of U.S. adults identified as political independents in 2025. Meanwhile, equal shares of U.S. adults, 27% each, identified as either Democrats or Republicans.
So I'm just spitballing here, but like the people that said I'm a Republican or I'm a Democrat, the people that said they're Republican are like, they are the MAGA or American First people, and the people that said they're Democrat are like the like the I don't, do they have different they have like far left, and they have like blue dog Democrat or whatever, I don't even know, but all the independents are like, you're kind of just, they'll show up to vote kind of, and they don't really follow any inter-party politics, and right. they don't know what MAGA really even means, other than Trump calls himself that, like,
I mean, it's so the breaking it down by generation. So the silent generation, so people born before 46, 37% identify as Republican, 30% independent, 32% Democrat. Sort of what we kind of know. Older people are more likely to be Republican. Baby boomers, 46 to 64, 34% Republican, 33% independent, 32% Democrat.
Yeah. Now, but doesn't the baby boomers, though, they vote more left, though, right?
No.
They don't?
They're more Republican than they are Democrat.
Right. Every leftist protest I see is just like a bunch of boomers.
Yeah, but have you ever gone to any Republican event?
Yeah.
Other than when you go to the YR events, and there's still a couple of boomers at the YR events.
Yeah, that's true. I do go to
most of them are in leadership of the YRs and refuse to leave if they're over 40. Generation X, people born between 65 and 80, they are 31% Republican, 42% independent, and 25% Democrat. So it's just sort of, and then Gen Z millennials are 17 and 21% Republican respectively, and 27 to 24% Democrat respectively. So the interesting thing, for me at least, is to look at, so Republicans, it's almost a straight line up. The older you get, the more Republican you're going to be.
Yeah.
For Democrats right now, it's like a U. So if you're you know, boomers in the silent generation, right? You were born sometime before 1964, 32% chance likelihood you're a Democrat. And that is their high watermark. And then it is 25% for Gen X, 24% for millennials, and then up to 27% with Gen Z. So like Democrats are weakest with millennials as far as who they're willing to identify with.
Well, I think that has to do with because millennial is like, I'm a millennial, I'm like 92. So I think that has to do with who was in power when you grew up in like in high school, or maybe like who your parents voted for or something. Because like Obama was like the president when I was first voting, right? And the Tea Party movement showed up, and like I was like, yeah, like you almost want to rebel in a way. Like it's like cool. It's like rebellious now to like be trad and Catholic and go to church, right? Like that's the rebellious thing to do, right? And like
I've been rebelling for a while. I've been leading the rebellion for a long time.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think there's people that make good arguments on that one. I'm butchering the hell out of it, but that's why you see those swings. And the younger, like the I don't forget what the generation that just started voting, Gen Z, like you see it kind of being more like they haven't really made their decision yet.
Theirs is kind of typical, except for it's still low for Democrats.
It's still low,
right? Because for you always have low numbers with the younger people. Like I said, the Republican trend is very typical, right? You are, less Republican to more Republican the older that you get.
Yeah.
Democrats, that's weird that they have this dip with millennials. But I think part of that is sort of the nihilism with millennials.
Yeah.
Where it's like nothing matters, everything is blah, everything sucks. So I'm not going to be a part of either political party. But then that goes back to your point, is you get a lot of people that say that and then reliably show up for one part or the other.
Yeah.
Like we both know millennials that would hate that we think that they're millennials, but they are, who will say, I just want to burn everything down. I want to burn both of them down. I don't really care. They're all corrupt. They're all evil, blah, blah. But they will show up for the primary for the Republicans every time. They will show up and vote Republican straight ticket in November.
Right.
We also know, well, you might not. I know, millennial liberals that are the opposite. Everything sucks. They're all evil. We all need to get rid of the whole thing. Blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
But, gosh, Trump's just such a fascist. I have to show up and vote for the Democrats, is what they'll say.
I'm interested to see, have you seen this yet? Like where like two people are running in the same race, but they're both calling themselves MAGA. And now it's like two chickens pecking at each other. Like, no, I'm more MAGA because of this. And like, oh, I'm more MAGA because of this. And they're like just trying to one up each other.
Yeah, I'll be moderating a debate for the Texas Attorney General's office where I think you'll have at least two candidates that would call themselves MAGA candidates.
Yeah.
Maybe more. I don't know.
Yeah. And
we'll find out February the 4th.
Yeah. And I just, it's just going to be interesting to see this kind of develop of like, I'm more MAGA than this person, or like people are running against people that are currently in office, right? They're incumbent. They're running against incumbents that are calling themselves MAGA. They're calling themselves MAGA. And they're like, no, I'm more MAGA than this person, but I'm just going to do MAGA better.
Yeah, the U.S. Senate race between Paxton and Cornyn.
Yes. And
probably Hunt. I think Hunt would probably, I don't know what Hunt would say, but like, I mean, Cornyn's running ads with him and Trump and 97% voting with Trump, and here me and Trump, and here's nice things Trump said about me.
Yeah.
And then you've got Paxton doing the exact same thing.
Yep.
So it's like, yeah, that's going to be your everybody's claiming that they're MAGA. The only difference is I don't think Cornyn has started calling Paxton a rhino yet, although, Cornyn gets called that a lot.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of the being called a rhino is like, I don't agree with or like you didn't get done what I wanted to get done, or I don't agree with you, or I'm just running against you. So now you're a rhino. And it's like, I don't know.
I'm always interested by people that have economic policies that the Democrats had for the last 40 years, calling people that are consistently Republican for 50 years, rhinos. That's the one that I find to be the most entertaining. It's like, you're supporting policies that Republicans and the Tea Party avoid or opposed until Trump said it was cool, and now you're totally down. But that person that's been a consistent Republican for 50 years is now the rhino.
Right.
Womp womp.
Oh yeah. Well, they're a rhino because they were around. Some of them were around before Trump, and that's kind of the thing of like, you have got us into this situation of X, Y, and Z, and it's like, you know,
anybody that was a Republican with Reagan is obviously a rhino.
Yeah, very very well could be. Okay, so you made your. We told us about the event we got going on.
Yeah. So again, there's a few things that we want to tell you about. Again, thanks for watching A Better Conversation. This is where we have what's called in the biz a call to action. Our call to action for you is actual action. So we would like for you, obviously, to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Share the podcast with your friends. Share the clips with your friends. Maybe tell us in the comments, what's MAGA? What's America First? What are your opinions on that? How do you define it? Most importantly, we want you to actually get out there in the community. We have the primaries coming up. So if you're here in Texas, I want to remind you, Election Day in the Republican primary is Tuesday, March 3rd. It's called Super Tuesday. It is a super day. Before that, early voting starts on February the 17th and runs until February the 27th. So make sure you get out there, you cast your ballots, you go work for your candidates. Once you've cast your ballot, stick around. Invite other people that come up to vote for your person. Like, there's all sorts of things that you can do in the primary season. The primary season is where we define what the party is. What is the Republican Party? We'll find out when we come out of the primary with who our candidates are going to be. So let your voice be heard. A great thing to do with that is obviously to inform your voice. So on February the 4th, A Better Texas is sponsoring an event being hosted by the Collin County Young Republicans for the Texas Attorney General debate. You're going to have 3 of the 4 candidates will make it there. Unfortunately, Chip Roy isn't able to make it because he'll be up in D.C., but I think he's going to be sending us a video message. But all the other candidates will be there. It'll be your opportunity to hear them speak on the issues, speak on the reasons that they're running for office, speak about why they're the most qualified candidate for the job. I know they'll be speaking on that because I'm moderating the debate, and I'm going to ask them questions about that.